Good morning and welcome back to Molly's Cupboard Studios. I'm Mindy and today we're going to pick up where we left off with our A6 Traveler's Notebook. In our last video we learned how to make our Traveler's Notebook in the A6 size, that's 4x6, out of a vinyl placemat. Today we will learn how to bind and cut A6 inserts from free printables. In this particular video, I'm going to show you how to add a printed cover and 2 or 3 different methods for binding. We're going to need a pencil, a ruler, an X-Acto knife with a fresh blade. Paper dulls your blades very quickly, so this is really the best buy because you can just use the pop off a new blade, and these are about $1. You can sew your insert, but today we will be using a long arm stapler, and this long arm stapler is from Sparco. And I think I paid maybe $13 or $14 for it on Amazon. There are a lot of YouTube videos that will show you how to sew your inserts if you choose. You get a much cleaner look, but for my own personal use, I don't really want to go through all of that. So you're also going to need a piece of pretty cardstock or scrapbook paper. We're just going to use this. I printed this on cardstock from the computer. And a printed insert. This insert is from Monica's Marvels. She has a free printable site on Facebook and she has some really amazing inserts. When you go to print these, if your printer has a duplex setting, put it on duplex and flip on the short edge, and that will work your pages back and forth correctly so that they line up. I always start without the cover if I'm going to use a cover. Now, it's okay if you don't. It's easy enough to figure out eventually. You see, I included the cover on this one and deleted it on this one, so it's really no big deal. So I'm going to adjust the camera a little bit to work now. Remember, I still don't have a very great tripod, so if I get out of the picture, I'm really sorry here. So the first thing that I do when I start is I make myself a template. Sometimes I'll just print an extra page of the insert that I'm using, and others I'll just use scrap paper. In this particular case, a couple of the inserts that I chose from free printables were slightly smaller, so our insert is going to be slightly smaller so that it matches the rest of the inserts. You're going to take your papers with the cover on it and fold them. Now, if you left a blank page, your blank page is going to be in front. You see? It's not as important to line up your edges, your long edge, as it is your short edge at this step. So make sure they're nice and tight. Then lay it down and hold it. Now you'll see here along this edge, you see how these pages are coming out uneven? This is why so many people do not like home printables. There is a process in professional printing called creep, and it's where the pages, you see where the pages shift a little bit when you fold them? That, unfortunately, is not something that can be accounted for in home printing because of the various printers that are out there. And it takes a lot of talent to learn how to adjust for creep in a booklet. I personally am I love to switch around inserts, so I'm okay with that. I'm going to trim it off anyway. So we're going to line your stapler up. Now your stapler, if you look very closely, you see this little divot here? That's where your staple's going to come out. You see? That allows you to line up your staple. I personally like to staple from the inside. That puts my rough edges on the outside. It helps to preserve my bands. If you're using a leather TN, then you might want to do it the other way around, because it's a lot cheaper to replace your strings over time than it is to replace the wear spots in your leather TN. And don't mind my nails, I'm growing them out. If you're really worried about the wear and tear on either one of them, then go by all means sew it. And that's a great method. I just prefer this one, I think. Now your long arm stapler has an adjustment on it here. You just kind of move it back and forth until you get where you want. It has measurements too, but I really don't think that it picks up very well in the video, so we're going to kind of just guesstimate. And I like to staple close to the top of my insert. And you see we're pretty close, so that's going to work out. And then in the center, and one down towards the bottom. What I have found is that if you're looking for perfection in homemade inserts, you're probably not going to be happy, because your paper in the less expensive printers tends to shift. I don't know if you can see that little bit of bleed here. You can buy heavier papers and it will prevent the bleed that's in the insert, so that you can outdo. But as far as lining them up exactly, that's where you're going to end up with issues. But that's okay, I have no issue with it. So once you get your staples in, you're going to take your insert and you're going to smooth it down. And you can see I've been doing inserts all day. So the more you handle the ink. But I just use, it's a Bondo scraper to sharpen my edges just a little bit. And that's going to give me a sharper fold. Now I'm going to take and line up my templates. And this is why I use a template over the corners, because once you have that cover on there, you can no longer see the cut lines. And honestly, a lot of your freebies don't have cut lines, or the cut lines are installed in such a way that when you cut one direction, you cut the cut line for the other direction. So this just works best for me. Now I caution you to take your time doing this. These blades are really sharp and it can cause a big accident. So try and be prepared for some nice quiet concentration time when you work with it. Hold your ruler down really snug. Otherwise your paper's going to shift. And this is probably going to wobble enough to make you all seasick when I do this. But okay, and then make sure that your blade's deep enough to get along the line of the ruler. I like to keep the fold towards me because it doesn't pinch up as much as you go along. Do not press deep. There's no need. In fact, you make a bigger mess and lots more little tails when you do that. So just keep going over it. And you can see as the papers lift that it is separating. And now you see that first edge is cut. Now I did not make my line on the other side for this, so I'm just going to go ahead, and actually it'll work because it'll show you what happens when you work from the fold. And you can see it's dragging at the top. Okay, I figured I'd try it, but it doesn't work real well. Okay. And our second cut is done. Now, you really want to make sure that you're tight on this side, because here's where you're going to eliminate this creepy edge here. I don't know if that's the term for it, but it's the one I use. So, okay, now press down on your fold, push, and hold tight. I tend to cut my inserts standing up. They're quick and easy to cut, but I find that I get a lot less uneven edges and slippage on my ruler if I'm standing up. Oh dear, and I didn't quite do that right. And I cut off the edges of some of my notebooks, which means that I didn't quite get it centered. So the edges are kind of cut off in there. But in all, it's really not too bad looking. Let me see here. Yeah, you can see on this one that my template was a little bigger. I tried to downsize this one to match the rest of my little inserts. I'll have to remember next time to go a little bit wider. But that's okay, I'm happy with this. I still have the room that I need. So I'm going to show you the next step. Let me clear this off here. Now then, when I first started to do these inserts, I really disliked the wasted paper. And I tried everything in my power to get the pages to center to one side or the other. Excuse me. But trust me when I say the little bit of paper waste that you get from cutting way outweighs the paper waste that you're going to get from experimenting on not wasting paper. Now then, the next step, if I can find it here, that I like to do is to take a piece of sandpaper. This is just automotive wet dry. You want something that's really fine. This is 1,000. And you're going to sand the edges. And that's going to remove the little burrs from your pages. Sometimes you get them and sometimes you don't. It really depends on how thick your insert is. The thicker the insert, the more those little burrs that you get. But, okay, so let me show you some where the spacing worked out on a little better. This is an A6 paid insert from Sale Printables, and I've noticed that her shop may be no longer in service. And I want to show you what I did. For starters, you can see that I've still got some little burrs on there, but this one is much wider. You see the difference? So don't be afraid to look at your inserts and make them all, if you want them all the same size, err on the larger side. Most of your TN covers have room for that. This is a monthly and weekly combination. And what I've done is created my own Dutch doors. So before I trim the pages, I trim the top and I trim the top and bottom. And then I folded in the flip. For this flip, I will use rubber stamps or a to-do list or a doodle box throughout the book. And then the others I just trimmed. So in order to trim them, after you get your pages all folded in, and you can see how the pages are folded, then you're going to take your ruler and hold it down really snug and just trim them again. And you can see these little burrs here. This is kind of why you need to sand. And that little sandpaper really goes a long ways in taking those off. You can kind of see them lifting now. Okay? See, it's starting to get better already. It really is a great way to get a nice finished edge on your TN inserts. Now, I know that a lot of you just simply cannot abide by those staples. So here's a quick fix. I made myself this little monthly folder to throw in my purse, but it works along the same lines. You can see here where I stapled it and covered the staples with washi. In order to do this, you need to go ahead and fold your papers, then staple them to the very outside. You see how this one's kind of to the outside? Because if they're, or you can staple in the very center, but you want to make sure that they're all in the same space before you cover it with washi. The wider the washi, the easier this is going to work. So that's a quick and easy tutorial on how to bind and cut your inserts. Thank you for joining us at Molly's Cupboard. We'll see you soon.